Hi, my name is Michael Waits, and I'm your instructor for the Advanced C++ Programming COP2222. This is a small introductory video just to let you get to know me a little bit and then talk about a few things you need to know for the semester. So let's go ahead and jump right in. As I've already said, my name is Michael Waits, and I have been teaching here at SBC for a couple of years now, and I typically teach programming and programming languages. I cover multiple languages from C++ all the way to C# and Java. I even help out and do some SQL as well. So oftentimes, especially for those that are taking an advanced course like this, you may have had me as a previous instructor. And so if that's the case, welcome back. If you're new to me, well, welcome, and hopefully everything will work out great for this semester. I am a professional in the industry. In fact, I manage a team of engineers, software engineers, that work on a product, and we are, the organization I work for is right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and beyond that, I've been a programmer and have been programming in multiple languages for many, many years, well over 20 years. So I know a little bit about programming, and not only that, but being in the industry, I can also help give feedback of what trends we're seeing in the industry, and sometimes we'll learn certain things, and I'll give you some advice like, hey, when you get out in the industry, your organization more or less might do this instead. Things like that. So that's what's nice about being in the industry. In fact, SBC is really good about that. They like to hire professors that are in the industry, so in the industries they're teaching, so that way they can be very relevant in class. As far as my hobbies, I have several, but my biggest hobby is probably the most expensive hobby I have, which is I am into off-roading. I have a Jeep. I have a 97 Jeep Wrangler, for those that know about that and care about that. And it's definitely been built up for off-roading. So I tell people that because, you know, oftentimes the best time to go off-roading is, you know, the weekends when we're not working our full-time jobs. So I do suggest, if you need to get a hold of me, try to get a hold of me early in the week, so that way I have plenty of time to answer you. I'm really good about getting back to people within 24 hours, but sometimes that response is, I can't answer this right this moment, but I will as soon as I can. I try to at least do that. So like I said, try to get to me more towards the beginning of the week, so I do have time, especially if you're asking me specific questions about the assignments. That way we have plenty of time to get a message over to you and help you out with that. So let's take a little bit and talk about the syllabus. Now, first, let me tell you, this is just highlights. I really need for you to read the syllabus. In fact, you should print off the syllabus and keep it for your own records. It's a very important piece to do that. In fact, if you ever need to change colleges or you ever need to prove what you've taken and how you've taken it, the syllabus is usually typically the #1 way to prove what you've done in your past. So I always recommend to everybody, print off all your syllabus for all your classes and make sure you keep them for your records. Now, the best way to reach me is via email. You can reach me through email through the my courses piece, or through my SBC email, which is in the syllabus. I do have a phone number you can find in the syllabus, but I will tell you, typically what happens when you call that is you won't get me. You'll get my message, and you can leave a message, and it will send me an email, hopefully of the transcribed message, and then I'll usually respond back to you via email. So again, typically the best way, even if you're looking to get a hold of me fast, is via email. Again, as a professor that's in the industry, this is a second job for me as well. So while I'm good at checking emails, I do have an extremely busy schedule, and would hate for you not to be able to get a hold of me. SBC does have asked me to make sure I'm available for appointments, and I like being available for appointments. What I will tell you is, especially right now with COVID and all those things, we typically aren't meeting in person now. Instead, we're going to meet via Zoom, And if you need some help with one of your assignments and you need me to get involved in that, that is how we're going to do it, is via Zoom. So make sure that if you're having issues or you need to get a hold of me, that you are reaching out to me, and I can set up something to get together on Zoom. As far as tutoring, I know SBC does offer tutoring in multiple subjects, including programming. You can find that on SBC's website. They are doing things because of COVID to help with that, so look into that. If you do need help from me, I will tell you, high and low of it is be specific. Um, I go and I record lectures to make sure that you can go back and look at things again. I do my best to give examples of the lectures I'm giving. And so when I get emails that say, Professor, I just don't understand, can you help me with assignment 1? My immediate email back to you is going to be, what specifically can I help you with? To go over the entire assignment would be like me just sending you back to my lectures and say, that's what the lectures are for. So when you're asking for help, be specific. If you've got something that's wrong with your code, code can't compile, be specific about that and send me your code. Don't make me send you an email asking for your code. So make sure you attach your code if you need me to take a look at something very specific. And like I said, make your question specific so that way I know where I can help you with. Now the book, if you took a C++ in SVC, C++1 in SVC, more than likely you already have the book. This is the book. If you look at my little video down here in the corner, it is the C++ from control structures through objects, 9th edition. The syllabus has the ISBN number, so make sure you do have this book. Like I said, most students should already have this book because you probably took C++, the first course with SBC already. Hopefully you took it with me. And we'll talk about that here in a moment, why I say hopefully you took it with me. Okay, so attendance. SBC is very specific about how we do our attendance. We take attendance the first 2 weeks. You have to be marked active in the first 2 weeks. So I have to have you're here at least once in those 2 weeks, preferably both weeks. So to do that in this course, there are discussion boards that you need to answer in both weeks. Please answer them to be marked be marked here in the course. Now, about 60% through, you'll see that I have to take another attendance, and it's based on participation. Some professors, have you do something. Some professors will ask you questions. Basically, what I do is I look at the grade book. If you're participating, you are getting decent grades, you aren't trying to speed past it, then I'll mark you as participating. If you have a lot of zeros, a lot of missed assignments, typically that's what's going to get you marked as not participating. Oftentimes, if you get, especially in the first 2 weeks, if you're not marked as being here in the first 2 weeks, oftentimes you get dropped from the course. Same thing with the 60% participation. If you aren't showing participation, typically you will get dropped from the course. So please don't let that happen. If that does happen, I have no control over that, and you will have to talk to your guidance counselor. All right. So let me give you the common breakdown of each week. So each week is typically going to have materials for you to watch and to read. You also have some assignments. The assignments do have a 2-day grace period we'll talk about here in a second. And you'll have a quiz and a discussion. Now, typically the quizzes and discussions don't have grace periods, so please get those in on time. In fact, they will close automatically on their own. Late work. So this one is a touchy subject because, unfortunately, what I find is if I allow late work too much, I get inundated with grading papers after the fact that take twice as long to grade because I have to go back and research what we were doing on that subject. So in fairness to not only the other students who have worked hard to make things get in on time, as well as myself, in that I don't cause problems in the grading because I miss a paper that was submitted late, I just don't take late work, right? So the assignments themselves already have a 2-day grace period. Now those grace periods do come at 10% a day. So if you miss an assignment 2 days, you're already down to a 90%. So excuse me, an 80%. Yeah. So the first day is 90%. Second, you're down to an 80%. So use those grace periods sparingly. I mean, if you really need to get through something and you want to knock it out and make a really good paper, so that way at least you get a good grade other than late charge, I get it, But I would tell people is don't depend on that. Try to get those assignments in on time. Otherwise, I don't take late work. And the only way you can get late work to me is if you talk to me ahead of time and it's a really good reason. Again, as a person that's in the industry, sometimes I know work will send you on assignments. Hey, we need you to go to Atlanta to work with this client. Typically, if that's what's happening, I would need some kind of documentation to show that. But in those cases, if it's not happening every week, then and you talk to me ahead of time, that's the other thing. You must talk to me ahead of time. Then typically I will work with you and try to help with you. The other way to do it is if you have a documented emergency. Again, with COVID, if you find yourself in the hospital or you find yourself with COVID and you need a couple of extra days and you've got the documentation, please feel free to submit the documentation and ask to turn something in late. That is acceptable, and it's the only way to get something turned in late after the fact. As in, if you haven't already talked to me about turning something in late before it's due, you are not going to get it done unless it's a documented emergency. This course does have a final project, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but please understand that there is a final project expected from you. Student expectations, again, we have discussion boards, so in even discussing things with me, please have etiquette. I'm going to speak to you with respect, and I would really like respect back, and so would your fellow students, so please keep that in mind. We've already talked about late work, so I'm not going to really go over that again. Again, remember, unless you've talked to me before the due date, the only way to get things approved afterwards is documented emergencies. Typically, we, in our beginning courses, or beginning program, oftentimes I will give second chance submissions, as in if you really struggled with a project and you're way below in the grade, oftentimes I'll submit something to you and say, hey, here's some things that you missed, here's some things that you're struggling with, work on this and then get it resubmitted. And I will only do that now. This is an advanced course, right? So you're now expected to understand the basics and really be able to get into this. So I won't give as many second chance submission as I do in previous courses, because again, you're expected to kind of be up to speed now, and really we're talking about some concepts that are just growing on the concepts you already know. So I don't give second chance submissions as often. I do on occasion, but in this class, not as often. As far as my expectations, I have expectations, and that is I'm here to provide you help. Again, I need specific when it comes to help, but that's what I'm here for, and I am here to help. I can't necessarily involve myself with you and teach the entire class to you, but I definitely can help you if you're struggling in some areas, you need some help. Again, reach out to me sooner than later. I've had students reach out to me in the 5th week and have been struggling since week 2. The problem is we can't go backwards. We really can't. So all that work has had issues, and now they're getting a bad grade, and now they finally come to me. And the problem is even now, I don't know that we, in the 5th week, I don't know we can pull the nose of the plane up enough to get you out of trouble. So if you're struggling, especially the first couple of weeks, get word to me so we can talk about things. That's the only way you're going to be able to recover. I do respond to emails. Again, my goal is to try to respond within 24 hours. It doesn't always happen just because, again, like you, I have things going on. I'm in fact also a student, and not only do I have a full-time job, managing developers, but I am back in school getting my second master's. I'm working on my Master's of Business Association. And by the way, as an IT guy, the MBA is definitely a little more difficult for me. So sometimes I have to put a lot of time into that too. So again, just bear with me. Get those emails to me as fast as possible so I have as much time to get back to you as possible. And then sometimes even my responses will literally be, hey, I got your email. I don't have a second right now to look into this. Give me another day and I will get back with you. So again, if you submit something to me on Saturday expecting to get your paper in on Sunday, we both might have some trouble with that on occasion. So try to get to me as soon as possible. The other thing is, I try to grade work as fast as possible as well. I want to get grades to you and I want to get feedback to you so that way you can utilize it for your next assignment. The deal that I have to tell you first is, remember, I give people 2-day graces. So oftentimes I don't start grading until Wednesday morning because there's usually enough people that are turning things in late that if I were to get started in grading, I would just have to come back and start again on Wednesday. So oftentimes I start grading on Wednesday. The discussions, I will start grading usually on Monday and get those knocked out. Again, because we are in an advanced course, I will definitely do a lot more reading and observing how you're writing and what you're doing. Again, we're in college, so we're expected to have good grammar and all those things. And I will be looking at those much more closely. So that is what I would say is I try to do my best to get the work rate as fast as possible. And then the final expectation, out of what we're going to talk about, again, I have more in the syllabus, is to keep up with the industry. It's my responsibility as an industry expert to make sure that I'm translating that to you and telling you how people are doing in the industry and what things are going away and what's coming away, things that you should learn from academia, but just realize that when you get into your organizations, it might be slightly different. And I will, throughout the semester, continue to give you those little tidbits. One thing I always try to talk about is academic honesty. This is really important. Oftentimes it's overlooked in programming courses because, oh, well, we're not really writing a paper or what have you. But academic honesty is still very important. In fact, if you do a search on Google and you go find a piece of code and you plan on copying and pasting your code, if you don't cite that work and tell me where you got it from, and I come across it and please believe, I've been doing this long enough that oftentimes I'll see code and go, oh, I know where that code came from. And if you don't cite it, that is plagiarism. And it is definitely a problem with academic honesty, especially since all you have to do is cite it. Again, sometimes it makes sense. You're out looking for something and you're going to copy and paste, fine, but just cite it. Also, if you use work that you previously have done in another class, even if it was C++1 last semester, you have to cite your own work. So make sure you're doing that too. Citing your work, by the way, citing your code does not make you look weaker. It actually makes you look stronger. It allows me to know that you've done the time to investigate and look into other people and what other people have done and seen those things. So just make sure you are citing your work. Also, it's really important because, by the way, again, a lot of people don't talk about the academic honesty, but you don't want to get found to be dishonest. It gets reported to the school. The school actually, there's a database that all the schools have and look at of people that have been accused and also have been found to be dishonest, right? And it follows your academic career pretty much forever. So please, just don't do it. Don't take the chance and get into that. With that being said, the quizzes are open note and open book, but there is a time limit on them to make it to where if you're trying to look up every question, you're not going to have enough time. You know, we are expecting that you're going to read this and absorb some of this. As a programmer, we would never, I would at least, I never expect that you just know everything off the top of your head. That's just too difficult. So there is an expectation that, you know, you might have to look up something, and I'm okay with that, but you won't have time to look up every single thing. All right, so this is advanced C++ programming. Like I've already said, there's a definitely less expectation of rework, right? So if you turn in something and your C++ files aren't there, or you turn in a CPP file that has no code in it, I don't know that I'm going to be looking for you to resubmit it, right? Be careful when you submit your stuff. Make sure you're submitting things right, because again, you should have already done this plenty of times in the past and should now know what you're doing when it comes to that. If you're not sure, make sure you reach out to me so I can help you the first time and get you squared away. I do expect now quality coding, right? So if you use variables like A, B, and C, I'm going to take points off because right now, as a developer, and even when you get out into organizations, yeah, there are times, like in a for loop, you might see X is the variable, but most of the time for code maintenance and code readability, the firms you work for now want you to use meaningful variable names. So I'm no different. Make sure you're using meaningful variable names. I'm expecting you to write efficient code. So if you write something that is 16 different ifs, probably something could be done better, right? So I'm expecting quality code. That's also why I look to get feedback to you as soon as possible, so that way in next assignments you don't have the same issue. And I am definitely looking for quality code comments. Again, the expectation is you're in advanced C++ programming. So if you do something, well, to be frank with you, because you're showing me that you have the knowledge, I want a lot of code comments. I want to see that you know what you're talking about, that you do something. And especially if you're doing something that's a little maybe out of the norm, I definitely need code comments because I need to know why you did something, so I don't think that you did it on mistake or there's an error and I take points away. I was definitely a little bit more forgiving in the previous C++ course about compiling, running, and relatively free of bugs. Again, we're now advanced C++ developers, so we want to make sure that your code can compile and it can run, and it's relatively free of bugs. And when I say relatively free of bugs, I also mean very common user errors, right? If you ask your user to enter a number between 1 and 10, and I type A, and instead of getting a nice error back, a nice message back, the code breaks and dumps out and throws an exception to the console. That's not going to be relatively free of bugs. So please make sure you take the time, especially when it comes to user input, that you are doing the work to validate that they've entered the right type of information, right? So there's an expectation of relatively free of bugs. And I'm expecting that you continue to utilize what you learn every week. So this week should show all the things that you've learned in the past course. Next week should be all that plus what you learned this week, and so forth and so on. It's expected that you utilize everything you've learned up to that point when developing your programs. And that kind of brings us to that final project. So first I tell people, don't stress about the final project. If you don't wait till the last week, then you don't need to stress about it. It's relatively a simple concept. You're going to write a program, and you're going to create some documentation to tell me how it works, and maybe go into little details of some things you might have done to let me know that you do know what you're doing. But specifically, I need to know kind of in the documentation, I need to know what the program does, why it does it, and definitely if there's any special instructions on how to use it, it all needs to be documented. So that way I know how to use your program and I know why you wrote your program. Other than that, I'm looking for you to write a program. And I'm not even going to tell you what the topic has to be. In fact, when I was first learning to be a developer, I was a graphic artist. And one of the things I did to kind of just learn my craft and get better at it is I wrote what was a RGB to CMYK converter, and it took in, actually me, no, I apologize. Oh, by the way, side note, I typically, when I make my recordings, do just this. I don't really stop and edit too much. I don't redo things. I feel like it's much more personal if I make these recordings and I'm pretty off the cuff. And so sometimes, like there, I'll make mistakes in my recordings, and instead of really just taking and editing it out, I'll just tell you, oops, sorry, I made a mistake, and then go back at it again. So that way, again, it's more personal. It feels like you and I are now in a classroom working together, right? So let me start that again. So one of the first programs I ever wrote in C++ was to take RGB and convert it to hexadecimal, and back and forth. And the reason being is, as a graphic artist who was starting into web development, I knew a lot about RGB colors. But when you go to put them in HTML, you need to have the hexadecimal version of it. So I wrote something, and it's so silly and simple. It was just takes numbers and basically converts it to hexadecimal and then puts it back together in what would be nice and neat for putting in HTML. And it wasn't anything super fancy or anything like that, but it gave me an opportunity to develop something and work on my skills. And it's just true, if you do a lot of reading and you listen to my lectures, but you don't actually really get into really coding, you'll think you know it, but you don't. And when you go to actually start utilizing it, you'll find that you're going to have a hard time. So that's why we do this final project. So again, I don't care what it does per se, right? What I do care is that there's some substance to it, that you have the ability to show the things you've learned. There's kind of a checklist that I'll give you of these are the things you must have in your code, so I can see that you know what you're doing. But even that list is somewhat limited. Feel free to go ahead and add more to it. Again, the idea is to show me what you learn. So that way, if let's say I'm looking at your code and I don't really understand this one piece or why you did this one piece, but you did other things that were just spot on and really give me an idea that you know what you're doing, then I can go, okay, well, maybe that's a little gray here, but this other stuff was above and beyond, and so this person knows what they're doing, and I give that person a really good grade, right? Um, and so that's what this front-end project is about, is to show off your programming skills, okay? With that being said, there are some of you that have been developing C++ for a very long time, and you're just coming back to get that piece of paper that says you know what you know. What I'll tell you about your final project is, please, I know you want to go crazy and show me all the cool things you know, but just remember that this is the context of this is advanced programming, not super duper on top of the world programming, right? Don't please make it to where I can grade your project in somewhat a normal amount of time, right? So if you've got 22 classes and header files and stuff like that, you're going to make it too more difficult on me, right? So please don't do that. Again, keep it within the context of the class. All right. You got to do this project though. If you don't, it's about 20% of your grade. And so if you were to ace every other thing in this course and not do your project, the best you're going to get is a C in the course. And so don't do it, right? It's 200 points, and no late work. Again, when this class is done, I'll have roughly 4 days to read and run and understand every one of your programs. And so there's a limited amount of time that I have to grade this, because I have to have grades in by noon on Friday. So I've got other things going on, other classes teaching and stuff like that. So please kind of keep that in mind. As you're doing this, there is no late time or late work accepted on this. In fact, if you try to submit to me early and go, hey, listen, I'm going away, I'll probably still deny that, because again, I have only so many days to get this graded and turned in. All right, so that is my intro. I know I went a little long. Hopefully, we understand each other and expectations on what your expectations are, what my expectations are. You get to see a little bit of my style when I talk to people and how sometimes I mess up in my lectures and then just keep going just as if we are not, like we're live, I should say. You also will get to see me use pens, and I like to draw and all that good stuff. So that is kind of where we're at. I hope this video has given you a lot to think about. And if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and shoot me a message. Thanks, and good luck with the semester.